Imagination is more important than knowledge, for knowledge is limited to all we know and understand, while imagination embraces the entire world. Embraces the entire world. I'm Visesh Samyog and I'm fairly new to this school. So, I just wanted to start off this talk with something about me. I'm from Bangalore, and just like any other place, it has something special about it. To me, what stood out the most was the immense freedom, the freedom to imagine, the freedom to innovate, the freedom to use our imagination creatively. The first time I experienced this was, I believe, in first grade. Every alternate day, we had two periods around 35 minutes each, which were completely dedicated towards recreation. During our first period, we had to think of something we could make out of paper or any other materials that were available at the time. During the second period, we had to tell our teacher what we wanted to make, and she would provide us with the materials necessary for us to act on our imagination. At the time, we were just children, and all we could think about were paper dinosaurs, block skyscrapers, and toy cars. But only now do I truly understand the value of having the guts to imagine a way. This has truly shaped the way I think today. I found a quote that I think would sum up this story pretty well, which is, "What is now proven was once only imagined." This quote is derived from none other than the renowned poet, artist, and printmaker William Blake. I strongly believe in this idea and philosophy that he has presented in front of us, since I think it provides us with a sort of peek into the world, a representation of modern society, if you will. I find it quite interesting that a man from the 1800s was able to deduce such a level of understanding of our world that even modern philosophers could not. You know what? Let's take a step back. Have any of you ever wondered about how the telephone or television really came to exist? Well, if you did, you might be thinking that the person behind it must have had a very complex thought process and was already a prodigy to begin with. You're actually wrong. It's quite simple, really. It all started with some crazy person thinking they could do something different, something new, something unimaginable. Thomas Edison created the light bulb. While he was in the process of completing it, he was laughed at, ridiculed, and even discouraged by many people. Now, he has completely revolutionized the way people work. The world as we know it today wouldn't be the same without his invention. This goes to show that you shouldn't be afraid to imagine and innovate. Imagination works conjointly with innovation, like a fuel to a fire. There was a show in 1966. In this show, they introduced a new type of technology, a flip phone, they called it. At the time, it was considered alien, just fiction, they called it. Well, just 3 decades later, an American company came up with the first flip phone the world had ever seen. This is just one such example of imagination finding its way into reality using the fine art of innovation. You might be wondering what imagination really means, but it differs to each person. To me, imagination is a vision of something that is yet to be created that could possibly change the world. Innovation is a byproduct of what you get when you decide to act on that imagination, when you decide to take control of it and create something out of it. That is innovation. Nothing that exists in today's modern society, nothing, all the materialistic, practical, and theoretical things, most of it wouldn't have existed without courageous people imaginating. I find it scary to think that we could live in a world where everybody loses their imagination. The world would simply come to a standstill. But You don't have to just create something with your imagination, you could just improve upon something. In 1979, a Japanese company decided to change the sound system game. Originally, cassette tapes were used in bulky sound systems that were kept at home until they decided they were going to change that. They created a pocket sized device that you could carry with you anywhere and you could listen to your favorite tunes at any time. This completely changed the way we enjoy ourselves. But while we are paying attention to this, we shouldn't forget that these things we create and improve, all of it, shouldn't take away our imagination. AI is one such example. AI is a tool with numerous benefits. A new era might just be over the horizon, but people are misusing it for cheating and taking shortcuts. What we create should nurture our imagination, and some ways AI can actually. People use it to sketch prototypes, and because AI is free, it makes it so that everyone can imagine a way. But while we are invested in this whole topic, we shouldn't forget our humanity and use imagination for the good. There are many times when imagination has almost destroyed mankind, such as the invention of the first atomic bomb or the invention of chlorine gas. Oppenheimer and Fritz Haber are a few examples of people using their imagination in tyrannical ways. Oppenheimer bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki, while Fritz Haber used his chlorine gas against people in World War I to turn the tide. But if you look at all these examples closely, you'll see that all of them accomplished what they were trying to create or improve. But that isn't always the case. If you thought that every imagination led to a successful invention, that's far from reality. Well, Thomas Edison, at one point in time, thought that everything that needed to stick together could use cement to do it. And the mass production of buildings with cement was the way forward. But this idea never really took off at that time, since the model was quite complex and expensive. There was Henry Ford, who created his first automobile in 1896. It had 4 bicycle wheels and was powered by ethanol. It resembled a horseless carriage and only went 20 miles per hour. The $200 vehicle, which is approximately valued at $5,800 today, was too incomplete and too small to be mass manufactured. You might even know of Alexander Graham Bell, who made waves with his telephones, but his attempts at flying flopped. In 1903, Bell created the Cygnet, an aeroplane with a large wing. To give him some credit, it did actually take off, but it had little to no maneuverability, and when the wind changed, it came crashing into the ocean. Thankfully, the brave pilots survived, but unfortunately, the Cygnet did not. But hold on a second. Did that mean they stopped innovating, stopped dreaming, stopped letting their minds go into a frenzy of ideas? No, they never did. Else, their names would have never found their way into our books today. They would have been forgotten like dozens of others who have come and left the world with no contributions. As Edison rightly said, I have not failed 10,000 times. I've successfully found 10,000 ways that will not work. If you thought that all these people who create and imagine were already prodigies and again high IQ people, you're wrong actually again. Since Einstein didn't even speak until the age of 4. At the age of 16, he went to go write an entrance exam at a school at Zurich and failed to even get a passing mark. He almost dropped out of college as well. And even after getting out of college, he didn't even know what he wanted to do with his life. Nevertheless, he would go on to do groundbreaking work in physics and mathematics, eventually earning a Nobel Prize. Edison would even tell you that he was too stupid to learn anything at a young age. He even struggled to keep a job, getting fired from his first 2 jobs. But one of the most inspiring stories we've heard from Edison is that he failed over 1,000 times before he invented the light bulb. You might know of Robert Goddard, who came up with the research and of liquid fueled rockets. But though his ideas were revolutionary, they were never embraced in his lifetime. People called his ideas outrageous and impossible. He would eventually go on to kick off humanity's space program as well. You might even know Walt Disney. At the age of 22, he was fired from his first newspaper company since he lacked imagination and had no good ideas. He would go on to acquire an animation studio, and only for that animation studio to go bankrupt. It was only until he made his way into Los Angeles where he came up with the iconic Mickey Mouse, and that's where everything changed. What I'm trying to say is, do not give up on your unique vision. See, a few months ago, I suffered from an injury to my leg. It was a ligament injury, and I already had many injuries to my leg, and the doctor said to never play sports again. And my parents as well, they said to give up on sports and just live a normal life. Well, I didn't want that. And I decided that no matter what they say, in a few months, I will get better and I will play basketball, the game I love. It's only been 4 months, but in those 4 months, I've spent every day doing grueling leg strengthening exercises, and now I'm finally able to play the game that I love. This goes to show that if you believe in what your idea is, even if everybody wrongs you, you can still go on with it and you can get there. Do not give up. What I want you to understand from this is that your vision is unique and only you can achieve it, and to use your imagination in beneficial ways. The award winning poet Maya Angelou once said, "You may encounter many defeats, but you mustn't be defeated. In fact, it may be important for you to encounter these defeats so that you can know who you are, what you can rise from, and how you can still come out of it." Let's imagine, let's invent, and let's leave the world a better place than it was. Thank you.